So we just got back from seeing A Monster Calls.
I'm afraid.
Of course you are afraid.
And Chris has been crying ever since we left the theater.
So sad.
I know everything about you. The truth that you hide.
In the words of the monster, I keep telling him to just let it go.
It's too hard. Felicity Jones.
I wish I had 100 years. 100 years I could give to you.
But clearly, he is still seeking his own truth, which is what we're going to talk about. The truth of A Monster Calls. You're just wasting tissues now.
I'll use them later. So I'm gonna cry more. I can promise you that much. Man, yeah, I mean, the movie itself was good, but the result that I had leaving the theater was just like, boy, I'm bummed.
Yeah.
Really bummed.
Well, not even leaving the theater, just sitting in the theater.
That's true, the whole duration
watching
of the time of the movie is...
I think, yeah, I kind of mentioned before, there's a part where, well, I don't know if we already want to talk about this, but his truth...
Spoilers!
Yeah, his truth is essentially coming to terms with his mother's death and letting her go.
Which I don't think is a surprise at this point. I mean, even from the trailers, I was like, Felicity Jones is not going to make it.
Right.
She didn't look like she was doing too well. That's why it was weird that it was this kids movie. I mean, I guess you would call it a kids movie.
I don't know if I would call. I mean, it premiered at Fantastic Fest.
Yeah, I guess that's
so
true.
I don't know if it premiered at it played at Fantastic Fest, but it's based on a novel.
Yeah.
And I noticed, which I didn't know before, the author also wrote the screenplay.
Yeah.
But I haven't read the book, so I don't know if the book is like a young adult novel or if
It feels like it is for some reason. But again, that's why it was just weird that it's still, I mean, it's a story from a child's perspective at least, or like, you know, a younger perspective, having to deal with some very like heavy issues. And that's why, again, like it's sort of, the entire movie is you're waiting for Felicity Jones to die. And that sort of atmosphere like permeates everything. It's just so downbeat the whole time. Again, like you said, you can cry at any moment almost because everything is so...
I cried like 10 times.
Yeah.
I
well,
lost count, actually.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Well, not full on crying, but my eyes
You know,
were
you get a
watering
little
up and I was
misty,
like,
you're
oh
like,
my God, this is so sad.
Emotions. The overall feeling of the journey, I think, is supposed to really make you feel like you are going through it with Connor, in the sense that you're like, I'm ready for his mom to die as well, you know. They were successful in creating that feeling in the viewer. And again, that's what the movie hinges on, is Connor coming to that conclusion that he has to be able to let go of his mom. And the way that that happens is through his tree pal, Liam Neeson. I was surprised too the first time when Connor sees the monster, and I mean, it's big and I thought it was pretty scary looking. You didn't find it maybe as scary as I
Not
did,
really, but
I'm kind of a puss, what can I say? But I thought the tree guy looked pretty frightening, and I was surprised by Connor's reaction, because he's like, yeah, whatever, monster, you know, I don't want to hear any of your dumb stories and stuff like
it's
that.
leave my mom alone.
But I would have been, number one, peeing my pants, and number two, hiding for my life and waiting for things to go away. Because how would you not? I mean, even if you thought it was a dream, but it's still like that realistic that you're like, whoa, that tree came to life and now it's talking to me. Not a normal day for Connor MacDougal, which is
MacDougal's his real
the
name.
actor's name. Because I think Connor MacDougal is like the ultimate name for that kid.
Lewis MacDougal.
Yes, it's the
Connor
actor's name.
O'Malley.
I know. But yeah, that kid wasn't MacDougal. We were saying that too. He just looked like a MacDougal. The kid was great. I mean, I thought he did.
No,
he
he
had
was very
a lot
good,
of heavy lifting emotionally and stuff like that to do, and he's almost on screen the whole time.
Yes.
I don't even know if there was a scene without him in it,
Yeah, I don't think there was.
because that's how like entrenched in his perspective you are the whole time. So that's kind of impressive. I didn't even really consider that aspect, where he had to essentially carry the whole movie in a lot of ways, which was pretty impressive for little MacDougal to pull off. It's interesting too, because a lot of times when there's a magical friend in a movie, they kind of show you, oh, here's the fantastical side of things, and I'm here to show you these wonderful things you've never even imagined. And this guy's just like, I'm here to tell you some weird oblique stories. You gotta figure it out. You know, the end result is your mom's gonna die. Deal with it. Later, magical tree monster. You know what I mean?
Well, I think the point of that, I was thinking about this earlier, is that it's supposed to be ambivalent, right? I was thinking about why he chose those types of stories, and because dealing with the grief of having somebody pass from cancer, something that's uncontrollable, you know, and I think there's a lot of questions during something like that, like, why is this happening to me, or why is this happening to that person? And you can't make sense of it, right? Like, sometimes just shitty things happen. And
to good people.
And so I think that was the point of the stories that he was telling, was that, like, sometimes there isn't a bad guy, sometimes there isn't a good guy, sometimes shitty things happen to good people, and that's just life, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting, like what you're saying, they applied that to the movie where it almost seems like they could have made Sigourney Weaver as the grandma like really bad.
She's more just kind of a weirdo.
Well, she's a little weird, but she's older and she's out of touch, and obviously has a complicated relationship with her daughter who's dying of cancer and all this stuff.
She maybe has some OCD.
A little OCD as well. But I mean, again, she's more out of touch rather than like from any sort of nefarious or villainous angle.
Right.
And it's the same with her dad, or sorry, his dad, where it's like, okay, maybe he's a bad guy because he left the mom, but again, he didn't leave her because of the cancer or something. It was like, it just didn't work out. You know, that's just how life is. And a lot of what I thought of when watching the movie, because it does have some pretty kind of fantastic visuals at points and stuff like that. It's still very grounded for the most part, but it does kind of indulge in that occasionally. It's like Tim Burton without the whimsy, because he's always got that little like, you know, where it's like, here's this thing, but it's got a little goofy. You know, we got the little kids eating turkey legs with their teeth on the back of their head and shit like that, and they didn't really have anything like that in this movie. So maybe a little too dark for its own good. Again, could have benefited from some levity, but it also might have actually cheapened the movie itself to try to like add in some of those kind of normal jokes for kids nowadays, where it'd be more like, you know, whatever, like Sing, you know, like pigs in bikinis dancing around, or
ice skating and
rabbits singing,
a thong or whatever
singing Sir Mix-a-Lot and stuff. It didn't really have any of those kind of gags in this movie. It wasn't that kind of movie at all.
No.
This was more like again, a grown-up kids movie is, I think, the most accurate way to describe it. Because I was trying to think of other movies that I would say were kids movies that were as big of a bummer as this one. So maybe I'll ask the audience that question. Can you, if you've seen A Monster Calls, or if you haven't, what is the biggest bummer of a kids movie you can think of? I mean, we thought of stuff like Never-Ending Story, when the horse Artex dies in the quicksand, or like in Legend when the unicorn gets its horn taken off and dies at the beginning.
But I don't think those movies were made for kids, though, right? You know, that's kind of like how I feel about this one. I don't know if this was necessarily made. Was it made for kids?
Well,
like,
that's why
it a kid's book?
That's a question. I feel like it was marketed for kids. I can't say with 100% certainty. I'm sure some marketing guy is kicking himself right now because he was like, oh, it was supposed to be for kids and it wasn't clear or whatever. I guess it's because it's a children's perspective. That's what makes me think that it's for kids. I don't know. But as far as Legend, it was the 80s. I mean, come on. You know, what else there to say? It was a free-for-all. Everyone was loving each other. Oh, that was the 60s. Everyone was doing coke and sending fax machines. They didn't know what was going on.
Sending fax machines.
That's what they did.
They sent a fax machine
The whole
to
fax.
somebody?
They didn't figure out until later that you were supposed to just do the paper. That's why, again, 80s were confusing as fuck. Everyone didn't know what was going on. That's right, exactly.
Please, no, I cannot be fired.
Another thought that I had is that this is the same director that's going to be doing Jurassic World 2, which I am really excited about. I think is going to be interesting. But there wasn't anything about this movie that I was like, this guy needs to direct a bunch of dinosaurs on a green screen.
They're all going to be crying.
It's going to be a very emotional Jurassic World 2. Maybe Liam Neeson should voice the king of the dinosaurs in Jurassic World 2.
Oh, in this one they learn to speak.
Yeah, they learn to speak, and they
harness the power of language.
And they have opposable thumbs, so they can handle phones and they can take
I
business
can see
calls.
the Raptors doing that. They're very smart.
Yeah, I think that was actually on The Critic. They had something like that. Did you ever watch that show?
Yeah. Nah, a long
We'll roll
time
that
ago.
clip for the one person that's ever seen the show.
You may have us, but you'll never get off the island.
I beg to differ.
Well, more spoilers before we go. I hope Felicity Jones makes it next time, whatever movie she's in.
Yeah, I know. She's
Been
died.
having a rough year at the theater.
Died in Rogue One. Died in
This.
this.
And I think there was one more. I can't remember another movie that came out this year that I'm pretty sure that she died in.
Well, she got a rough time in even that first big movie, the one about Stephen Hawking. She had a tough turn in that as well.
Well, and she was in Amazing Spider-Man 2 and didn't even get to play Black Cat because they didn't make Amazing Spider-Man 3. So, I mean, that's probably like the worst one of them all, you know? Anybody even remember her in that? Yeah, I didn't think so. Paul Giamatti as the rhino. Mwah!
I do like Paul Giamatti.
He was great. If you like accents, his Russian accent cannot be beat. All right, so I mean, I think we would both agree that the movie's worth seeing, right?
Sure, but it's like not one of those movies that you're like, oh gosh, you know what I really am in the mood to watch today? A Monster Calls.
Yeah, that's why it's just like, it's a good movie, but be prepared to not have like a great time. Like you're gonna be bummed, but that's actually the whole point of the movie is
Right.
like it's dealing with a lot of very somber issues and stuff and does it in a very grown up kind of way as well. So again, I have to applaud them for that. And maybe it's not a kid's movie, it is PG-13, not PG. But I mean, there was one kid in the theater. I didn't hear them crying though. They probably didn't even know what the hell was going on.
Probably not.
All right, guys, that'll do it for us over at FoundFlix. Have you guys seen A Monster Calls? Let us know what you think down in the comments below. All right, thanks to Jamie for stopping by and sharing in my misery. Till next time, see you later, guys.